Hey y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. Yay, so I'm really excited today because we're sitting here with Tristan Victor. He is an integration specialist. He's a holistic wellness coach. He is a psychedelic advocate. He holds cannabis circles and integration circles, very much into psychedelic plant medicines the way we are as well. And we're just both so excited to be talking to you.
It's such an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me in this presence and to share my voice. So thank you.
Well, we're always really, really happy and grateful to connect with others who are also holding space and bringing this, psychedelic therapy to the community. And I think, obviously, before you even get to wanting to hold space, you have your own journey with psychedelics. So I think a great way to just begin is just to hear your story of how you even became interested in psychedelics and psychedelic therapy.
Yeah, what a great question. It always reminds me of like the origin stories. Growing up, I watched a lot of superhero movies, and every hero has an origin story, and an acknowledgement that everyone is a hero in their own lives. The development of my own story started actually with music. I started with poetry. It started when I was 18 and I started writing. I started a club in high school called the Rap Collective, RAP, Revolutionize All People. And through that space, yeah, it was very interesting because I never really seen myself in the space of music or writing in that way. But when in that moment, I just had a few friends that were really interested in freestyling. And so I was like, why don't we make a club out of this? And so I started that. We started hosting bi-weekly events and open mics and creating circles where we could just authentically share our expression. And then so kind of following with that, I started becoming really interested in like going deeper with this idea of music and freestyling to the point where I connected with a producer. And then for the first time when I was almost 19, went to a studio and recorded in a studio. And what was curious about that is that I never felt so much anxiety. I had this like a blank mind when I went up to the mic, and I just felt all this come up. And I was like, what's going on with me? And I'm like, wow, I'm just like really freaking out right now. And shout out to my producer at the time, Kinetic, who kind of just really reassured me of just like the opportunity just to be in the moment and be present. And so that kind of really started my own self inquiry of what was underneath these feelings. And so I started journaling and developing a practice, which is what started my personal development. And I started understanding and revealing kind of things I was suppressing from my youth, from different traumas to different stories of my upbringing that were coming up, which was causing the anxiety. And then that personal development journey led me to actualize.org, which is a YouTube channel from a mentor of mine that I started watching his videos more. And he started talking about psychedelics and using it for personal growth and development. And so I became more interested in that and using the discernment from my 9 years of cannabis use. I started when I was 13. I kind of had some discernment about like what could occur within those spaces. I've had some pretty broad spectrum of experiences with cannabis, from really blissful, enjoyable experiences to some difficult and challenging journeys with it. So I just had a lot of discernment moving into the space of psychedelic medicines, and with the support and guidance of the videos I was watching and my own intuitive guidance, I began working with psilocybin at first, and my first mushroom trip really activated a lot. And it was this space of healing, of acknowledging where this anxiety, this energy, better said, was coming from, and starting to really deepen my own personal healing and forgiveness work and going into those spaces. So that's kind of what led me to my first psychedelic trip, which kind of started opening up and expanding what was possible. I remember specifically on my mushroom journey that there was this moment where I felt so much just presence. and I
Mm.
acknowledged like all this suffering that I was creating for myself, that I was in that moment of presence. Reminded me of a book I was reading at the time, Be Here Now by Ram Dass. It was almost like all the teachings of presence and be here now weren't just teachings, they were like an actual experience I was in that moment. And in that liberation, in that bliss, I felt free for the first time. I felt like I could breathe. I felt more alive than I ever have before. And so that medicine that was experienced in that moment just led me on this revelation of what's here, and what's possible, and the work that was necessary for me to sustain it, which is what started what I'm now working on with StayRizen, which is the sustainability, in our transformation, in our practices, and advocating the ceremonial and intentional use of psychedelic medicines in the way that it supported me, and in the way that I feel it can continue to support the collective and the awakening.
Wow. How old were you when you did your first psychedelic trip?
Uh, I was 18ish, I think, almost 19, when I had
You
my
were
first mushroom trip.
s Yeah, that's incredible. You were so, connected at that point. I think back to when I was 18 or
Mhm.
19, and that is not the headspace I was in. Like, that's so cool that you've been doing this for so long and that you found a very, like, ritualistic approach to it so early. I feel like I had to
Mm,
come totally back around to that in my 30s, after Ellen and
mm,
I started this journey together. Um,
mm,
so that's super powerful.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. I appreciate you acknowledging that. I feel I really hold the belief that everyone is nobody's self-made. Everybody is supported through guides and mentors and teachers along the way. So I'm really blessed to have had kind of education and support to get to the awareness of the intentionality, and also just my experiences at an earlier age when I was 13 with cannabis, and like my upbringing with the medicine just provided me a good variety of experiences that kind of led me to become more intentional, because I knew what the other side of it was, of when there wasn't intentionality, and there wasn't necessarily as
Mm.
much consciousness, and the difficulty that arose within me in those trips. And so I was just mindful and use that experience to walk in with the other medicines.
Something that struck me about your story is that it wasn't like you found psychedelics right away, even though you had this already developed kind of and developing relationship with cannabis.
Mm,
It was almost like you were seeking for a while before
mm,
I feel like the universe then
mm,
led you into psychedelic medicine or plant
mm,
medicine,
mm,
which is really interesting. Like I always find that these journeys, like there's never a coincidence, or you're always guided into whatever you need at that moment, and it's like this, it's like building blocks, you know what I mean?
mhm, most
It's like
definitely.
right? Like the foundation you needed to enter into psychedelics was like being crafted.
Most definitely. I like how you mentioned that. I believe there's no such thing as coincidences, only synchronicities. And when you're ready, the medicine will find you. And that's been a perspective I've held, that in each and every moment where the medicine finds me, is the opportunity of knowing and discerning when I'm ready. And so that's kind of what happened, is when the psychedelics kind of showed up for me and my direct experience, it was in a space where I was already studying and like interested in like working with it, to where it just universe brought me the right people and the right connections and the right now moments to be able to like have the medicine in front of me. And so that's just something I also acknowledge for those who are in search of the medicine. Let the medicine find you, and just be in the embodiment of being ready.
Are you still doing music?
Yeah, this is thank you for asking. This is a a space that I don't necessarily always share, but music has been with me since I was 18, and I'm 23 now. So, the last 5 years, music has been a very intimate space for me to write and express. And I've been freestyling every day. I always freestyle in my car. I write poetry. I'm working on a project right now, and so that's kind of part of what I've been really focusing on, as far as kind of my authentic expression has been music, and putting things together. And yeah, so it's a big part of my life, that I'm like now allowing others to see me in, and to and share, as part of, as my genuine integrity walking forward.
Wow. I'm just picturing you freestyling in the car, and it makes me smile so much. I'm like, this is what the world needs more of. Like, seriously, this is
Seriously.
amazing.
It's so cool because, I mean, clearly music is your expression of truth, right? Like,
Mhm.
that is your authentic expression. I'm curious, like, okay, so you've been your psychedelic journey has been, like, more or less, like, kind of concentrated in the last 5 years.
Mm,
How has that affected your
Mm.
music and your creation?
mm. Wow, that's a great question. Throughout the last 5 years of beginning to work with the medicines, and how I've seen my own music journey uh, come through, is as far as like the healing. I've noticed there's a lot of healing in my own voice, through the working with the medicines. They've kind of really shown me where my insecurities were in my self-expression, where my fears were in showing up and sharing myself with that level of authenticity. And it's also given me the opportunity to allow music to be a space of therapy, and a space of medicine through the authentic sharing. I always considered music to be a place where I could be really honest with myself, and say
Mm,
everything that I was afraid to say, and just allow it to kind of be a space to uncover. And that's what it's been for me the last 5 years, is a space to learn about myself, and a place where a lot of my freestyles or writing, I learn about myself, and I acknowledge that, wow, I wasn't even aware that I was feeling this, or that this was the root, or this was kind of what was inside of me, until I create that safe space within myself. And then in correlation to the psychedelic medicines, it's allowed me to understand what that looks like for me, as far as creating a safe space to surrender fully. And so that's kind of what I've seen as far as the symbolisms in working with the medicines, and providing a safe space for me to really go within myself, and to, as I always say, you can't heal what you don't reveal. And so to reveal what I at times conceal, and to move out of the space of depression, which is what I was noticing just being suppression, and getting to a space of expression, which I found music to be an outlet for that. And so, in working side by side, at times, even on my own medicine trips, I would like freestyle. And like music would kind of channel through me, and it would be a really healing space of inspiration, and also a space of revelation of kind of what's inside of me. So it's been really beautiful, and it's really shifted also what I speak about in my music, as far as deepening my conscious awareness of word choice, and kind of the message, and the ability for me to authentically share my direct experience. So it's been a journey. It's been beautiful to even reflect from the origins to
Wow. I was gonna ask if you ever, write while you're on a
now.
journey, because I bet that must be so incredible, like, the feeling of
mm.
knowing that you're channeling in the moment and being able to channel so authentically must be just, like, incredibly expansive.
Most definitely. I haven't actually with like the only medicine I have done that with is with cannabis, in spaces of utilizing that medicine for creativity and for writing. But I haven't actually attempted to do that with other medicines, which I am curious and willing to explore, in soon to be nows, and as it's mentioned.
You were saying that it has helped you to sort of address and, like, face some of the fears that had perhaps stopped you from being as,
Mm,
expressive or open with your music.
mm,
What what were some of those fears that you feel like you have been able to bust through?
Great question. Yeah, a part of what music has allowed me to reveal has been healing through the trauma I had when I was kind of younger. When I was 13, I got into an abusive relationship. It was the first
Mm,
time I had sex, and I was like in the space of kind of exploring a lot when I was younger, and it just led to a lot of drama. It led to a lot of insecurities, and in that relationship, it led me to a point of being very depressed, and I was self-inflicting harm on myself. I was cutting my wrists, and I was drinking, and I was smoking, and so I was in the space of youth where that experience, as I got older, I suppressed a lot, and it wasn't until I started writing with music that I started acknowledging that it was something that I wasn't really addressing or fully embracing or facing, and so it gave me the opportunity to start to kind of practicing the forgiveness work and practicing kind of the work that was necessary for me to see how that those experiences when I was younger was still affecting me as I was older. And so it provided me a space of revealing those truths for where I was still angry, or I was still holding on to guilt of some of my actions. I was still holding on to resentment. I was still holding on to anger, and I was still holding on to these energies. So in the music process, it's helped me kind of let go of that and go into a space of just acceptance. And I have this mantra I wrote for myself, which was I forgive, I let go, I allow. And so this mantra became a space for me to practice forgiveness, which is giving forward energy and not holding on to it anymore, and finding acceptance. And then in that space of working through it and understanding and realizing what it's teaching me, it gave me the space to actually let it go, and to let it go fully, energetically, emotionally, mentally, to get to the space of then allowing in what I'm now calling in, allowing in what I am choosing now, and allowing in what my new reality is. And so it became like this 3-step process for me to go through memories, memory recall, and then with the medicine, it's helped support kind of uncover things that even my own subconscious was suppressing in those memories and in
Mm.
those moments, to find the full kind of wholeness once again.
Wow. Wait, on those journeys, were you with a sitter, with somebody guiding you, or did you just go through this 3-stage process intuitively?
Yeah, great question. In my beginning trips, it was intuitively in my own. I did have a sitter. In those psilocybin trips, I did have someone there just to provide comfort and safety as I took some bigger dosages. I sat with an eighth for my first time with psilocybin, and then I sat with 5-MeO DMT 2 times, and both of those times were with a sitter and a shaman that was able to hold space. But as far as like the 3-step process, that kind of channeled through my own individual journeys outside of those experiences with others, and it became the space of revelation through working with cannabis and psilocybin.
Okay,
Mm.
I wanna, like,
So many
now
questions, I know.
I know. I wanna, like, go into each of these journeys because so it's you have mentioned psilocybin
Yeah.
and cannabis as almost kind of more like your main focus, I would
Right.
say. Is
Yes,
that
that
correct?
is correct. Yeah.
A and then the 5D E
Uh-huh. 5-MeO.
5E yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
5-MeO-DMT. So in comparison, tell us a little bit about those journeys and why you chose to do 5-MeO.
That's a great question. Yeah, so very different medicines, most definitely, and very different experiences. Of course, psilocybin became an interest as I was just doing more research, and I was under the research of some of my mentors from YouTube and my own self study. So that became an interest in working with the medicine. I always find mushrooms being really grounding, and really kind of
Mhm.
connecting me back to earth and to the harmonic resonance of earth, and having those revelations and insights and going deeper within. And so psilocybin has supported me in that way of connecting deeper to the self and to the relation to all. And so as far as the 5-MeO DMT, that became a very curious medicine because it's also known as the God molecule. It's also been known to
Mm.
quickly shoot you up to uh, what can be known as the ego dissolution or ego death. It's also been known to be a very quicker experience. Traditionally, it could last 5 minutes all the way to like 20 minutes ish. And so I started seeing it as like death, as kind of facing my own death. And the
Mm.
5-MeO DMT specifically, which comes from the Bufo alvaris toad, um, was different than like the NN-DMT, which is found in ayahuasca. And so the 5-MeO became more of this like truly facing my own death, and embarking on that journey. And so I decided to walk that path, and to walk in that way and connect with this toad medicine. And so my first trip, in the way that I approached it, was very profound for me. For the preparation, I kind of looked at it in that way, that I was going to be facing my own death, and that I was embracing and accepting the death of the self. And so for a week in advance, I started preparing emotionally, and I started writing letters to those that I felt like I needed closure with. I started calling individuals. I called like my uncle, who I haven't spoken to in a while, and just kind of had a heart to heart with him, speaking about just things that I felt like I've needed to tell him and say, and like just find closure within that. Most definitely, he was a brother to me growing up, and still is in many ways, but our bond kind of like uh, became more distant as he moved across the country. And then I just didn't have kind of the awareness of how to continue that bond, even though I was inside really sad and wanting to connect with him. I didn't know how. And so, in preparation of that, I decided to call him and to have that space of just sharing what's in my heart. And the same thing with my parents. I started just having these healing conversations about what I've been feeling, and accepting certain truths in that space. And so I started approaching it in that way energetically. I also found closure with this breakup, which became a breakthrough, and finding closure in that. And then so physically, I also was fasting. So I did a water fast 3 days before the trip. And then the actual trip in itself became this really liberating space where instantly, as soon as I inhaled the smoke, I felt my body, the sense of self starting to slowly slip. And as I laid back and had the shaman kind of work her magic, I felt this huge, immense amount of peace like I never had before. And I just remember a voice saying that you could finally rest. And I just remember hearing this voice of saying you could rest, you could be at peace. And it was almost as if all thoughts, all worries, all anxieties, anything that was taking me out of the moment was gone. And it was just me and the self, me and God, me and the consciousness, me and universe. And I never felt so much peace. And I remember in that space, I felt like I died, and it felt like I was dead. And I was in this like void space of just immense peace. And when I came back to my body, and I got up, it really had that realization of being a spirit in a body, that this is a vessel, of having this avatar and this character that I get to design. And I was just smiling for hours afterwards, as if I was given the secrets to the universe. And so that was my first 5-MeO experience. And then I decided to sit with it again the second time. Had a little different
Okay,
experience.
so sorry to interrupt.
No,
I have a question. Did you
please.
like lick a toad? I know this is it seems like a silly question, but how does the medicine get from the toad to you?
Yeah, great question. It reminds me of this Avatar episode of them actually licking toads to get better. I would definitely not encourage licking any toads, but the way that the 5-MeO was facilitated, it's actually you're smoking the venom of the toad. And so traditionally what occurs is that these shamans and or individuals who are choosing to work with the medicine go out to places like this, I believe it's the Sonorian Desert, and or other places, I think in Peru, where these toads are available. They come out every 9 months to excrete this venom. And so it's very synchronistic to like a birthing process, where they come out every 9 months. And then so they extract the venom of this toad, and then you basically dry it, and then you inhale it, and then you're smoking the medicine. And then that's kind of how it occurs. And so that was the process. The shaman had the medicine, in which she received um, from the extraction, and then offered it to me. And then so I smoked the medicine in that way. And then that was the experience.
Wow, and how long did that last? The journey for that?
My first experience was about, I would say, like 8 to 10 minutes. And then my second time
Yeah.
was maybe like 12 to 15 minutes. So it was rather short and linear time. Although it did feel lot longer in the experience.
That's what I've heard as well. What was the difference between your first and your second experience with that?
Great question. It's interesting because the second time, you're going in, I was going into it with already the first experience. So there was like the opportunity for me to let go of expectation and let go of like what
Mhm.
happened in the first, trip. And so the second time I did notice more resistance. It was very interesting. I did notice my mind, like me wanting to move more. Like I was just noticing all these thoughts. Like in one way, I looked at it as like my ego resisting itself, resisting the aspect of dying. And so I was just hearing all these voices of wanting to smile, move, laugh, be funny, do this, do that, do this. And so it was like this space for me to become the observer, and to come back into stillness. And that second time, it became more of like this experience of leaving my body, and I did feel more of like this astral projection type of experience where I was just, the second time was like in the forest. And so I just saw like my spirit like cruising through the forest and like wandering around. So it didn't feel as contained. It did feel more kind of like opening up this channel, and then in my energy, my spirit kind of floating around and then coming back. But a lot more resistance in the surrendering, most definitely. And then coming back, and then integrating that was interesting, to say the least.
What was the, um first of all,
Mhm.
how much time had spanned between your first and your second
Uh,
experience, and what was going on in your life during that second experience?
that's a great question. About a year, between 2018 was my first sit down with Bufo, and then 2019 was my second sit down with it. 2018, I was in a space of leaving academia. So I was leaving the school system. I also just quit my job, and I was deepening my own space of entrepreneurship and following my own quest. And so I decided to sit with the 5-MeO, in like acknowledgement of the rebirth. I was also just moving through the a breakthrough, leaving a 5-year relationship. And so it was a lot of things kind of like closing for me in 2018, and a lot of just transformations, and letting go and rebirths. And so that was my kind of moving into the first trip of like this rebirth aspect of letting go of these old identities of self. And then 2019, a year later, was me kind of deepening that, but there was definitely a lot more happening as I was now a full-time entrepreneur, and like deepening my coaching practice and my business and my social media content. And so it was just a lot more, I would say, going on. And the second time was at a retreat I held and I hosted. So it was like responsibility in itself as well. And so I did
Mm,
notice
mhm.
that, in both situations, it was different levels of mind chatter, and just spaces in my life that changed the experience as well.
Wow. I gotta say, and just reflecting back to you, as you were telling your story of the first experience, I I didn't expect it, but I got really emotional just hearing about the peace that you were
Mm,
able to, experience,
mm,
and just even the process, like, the very, very thoughtful and conscious process that you
mm,
took in preparation, and there's a part of me that wonders
mm,
what it would have been like had you not done the prep work, you know? Like, that is incredible that,
mm,
this one experience leading up to it, not just the fasting, but the
mm,
confronting and the conversations that you chose to have, and
mm,
I know it's completely a choice. It's not
mm.
like, somebody outlined this that, go and, tie up all those loose ends, you know what
Right.
I mean? It's like this is something that you felt that you needed to do before this particular trip. I just found that so beautiful
Mm,
and so profound, and
mhm,
man, I can only imagine that, like, what you experienced in that first trip with Bufo was
mm.
because of the work
Right,
that you
right.
had done beforehand.
Yes, I agree, and thank you for acknowledging that. My astrology chart is I have a Sag Sun, Scorpio rising, and a Cancer moon, And so over the years working with my own chart, specifically my Cancer moon, which is like emotion, it's water. Growing up, I've always had a difficult time with my emotions, where it was
Mm.
difficult for me to maneuver through them. I would get caught up in these waves of just drowning in my emotions at times. And my biggest challenge in my upbringing was mental health, and working with like anxiety. And so I've been in spaces where I was taking medication. I was manifesting these pains in my jaw. I was getting to a point of getting daily migraines. Um, for several months, and I was taking ibuprofen 800 to 1,000 milligrams every day just to manage the pain.
Oh,
And
damn.
so this was my high school, college life, where I would be in class and migraine would begin, and I would get really scared because it would get to a point where I wouldn't know what to do except sleep it off and or go to the nurse and
Mhm.
try to do something about it or take the medication. And so at that time, I was really hesitant and like being reliant on medication, but the pain was getting really severe. And so I was kind of beginning this process of healing for myself and what I can do, what are the natural remedies I can do so I'm not reliant. And it was getting to a point where they wanted to do surgery on my jaw. They
Wow.
diagnosed me with TMJ, which is like missing the ligaments of where my jaw kind of aligns and why it keeps clicking. And so it got to a point where I was really needing to make change, and a lot of it was just kind of like a lot of mental chatter as well. Since it was in my jaw, it was kind of headaches, right? That it was like a manifestation of just an overuse of my mind and an overstimulated mind as well. And so that
Mm.
kind of space brought me to a lot of moments of just breakdowns, feeling really in some spaces very psychotic and like not able to get out of my head and out of my mind. And my Sag energy was always thinking and like thinking ahead and wanting to do so much, and like wanting to go and explore and learn and learn and learn, to where I had a difficult time just like tuning in and integrating. And so part of those moments of pain and suffering really allowed me to start to begin this understanding of the value of slowing down, the value of doing this type of work. And with my cancer, my feelings, it gave me more of an understanding of the importance of relations, and the importance of having good relations with myself and with others. And so part of this work and introducing psychedelics to my self-help practices has been the proper preparation, which permits peak performance. It's also what offers the ability to really go deeper within myself. So I share all that in the space of acknowledging the deep suffering that at times desperation leads us to a space of motivation and dedication to really taking the time to see what we can do to help ourselves, and what that preparation can look like. Because especially in spaces of suffering, all I was looking for at the time was just relief, and to find relief in that
Mhm.
space.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's so crazy is, so I feel you so much because I am also a Scorpio rising and a Cancer moon.
Nice.
So it is, yeah. People see my chart and they're like, "Oh my god,
Right.
you have only like air and water in your chart everywhere." But yeah, and it's also like so profound everything that you were able to acknowledge while you were going through that experience, because I also have suffered from migraines
Mm,
since I was in high school,
mm,
and they're just debilitating. And
right.
like, as you're telling your story, I'm so inspired
Mm,
by it because you were so much more present and aware of what was going on in your body than
right.
I was able to be until, around 2018, which I thought was a really interesting parallel as well, because that's when Ellen and I started our journeys. There was something going on in
Mhm, mhm.
2018, something big.
Right.
Yeah. For sure. You started getting into the integration
Mm,
period after these, specifically the 5-MeO-DMT
mhm,
journeys, but and being, an integration specialist, I found that just even in my own journeys, there's a lot of emphasis placed on the journey
mm,
itself and what comes through and the experience. But I'm realizing that the integration period
yeah.
afterwards is like so much more important
Mhm,
than the actual journey
mhm,
itself. And so I'd love to hear about how the integration process was for you, specifically with these journeys, but how you even learned about integration and, the importance of
Yeah,
integration?
great question, and I like how you acknowledge as well. Like, it was most definitely after my first 5-MeO experience where I was really awakened to the importance and value of integration. Part of it, which I didn't mention before, is I went into my first 5-MeO experience with somewhat of an expectation, thinking that like this is it. As soon as I sit with like Bufo, then my rebirth is complete, then my whole life would be changed, like this is what I have to do, and like this is the only thing that I need to do, and like then everything will change after that. And so yeah,
Mhm.
that was a huge facade I created for myself, because uh
We all
yeah,
had that.
yeah.
Like, we probably all have
One and done,
Yeah,
right?
you're like, "Just one time and I'll be good," and so what happened was that I didn't have any support system afterwards, and so basically I sat with this, shaman, I got shot up and had this powerful experience, and then went back to my regular life without any support system, any integration community, without any guidance of kind of what can happen afterwards. The one thing I was told is that my dreams can be very vivid and very lucid afterwards, and which they were, but without the proper support and without kind of knowing what to do afterwards, I started experiencing levels of psychosis. I started experiencing derealization, which is like a form of anxiety where it's like you're present, but you feel like you're awake and you're walking, but it's a part of you is kind of not in your body. You're like observing yourself. And so it started feeling like I was losing sense of reality. I started losing connection with those around me. So I was living with my parents at the time. I didn't feel connected to them. I started having a hard time kind of discerning what was real and what was not real, what was just my dreaming life and what was my actual dream. And so
Did anyone tell you that it could happen?
no, I was not aware of all of these potential symptoms afterwards, and
Wow.
or what to do or where to go, and so it started getting into a space where I was scared, and I was afraid because I felt like I was going crazy, and I didn't know what to do or who to go to. I didn't want to go to my parents, telling them that I sat with this, I smoked this toad, and now I feel like I'm going crazy. Uh, uh, and so I also didn't really have that type of community connection because again in that point in my life I let go of a lot of old community. I was in a space of rebirth, letting go of a lot of old relationships
Yeah.
and environments, so a lot of things were newer to me of who I was choosing to be. And so that's when I started really reaching out, and that's when I found the Aware Project in LA and started attending psychedelic integration communities. That's when I found maps and started researching more, and asking for support and reading kind of more of kind of the psychedelic literature and education. That's when I read the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide and just started educating myself and trying to make sense of what was happening. And that's where I started incorporating more of the self help practices of grounding, coming back into my body, of earthing, and my nourishment, of eating more grounding foods like sweet potatoes and carrots, and shifting my dieta to also just deepening my own space of intention in my choices and my micro habits. That's also when I met Sky Weaver, who has been a great support for me in my journey of providing integration and like awareness shifts. And that's where the integration work really started becoming really prevailing for me. And that's where I started really advocating for the work afterwards, and what happens after the ceremony and how we choose to then integrate the experiences and embody it. Which last thing I'll share here, which is what kind of helped me get into a deeper clarity with StayRizen. Risen became an acronym for me that I started using for myself, RIZEN, which became remembrance, integration, Zen, embodiment, and normalization. And so I started following this 5-step process for myself of always beginning with the remembrance, which is what I feel like the awakening of remembering ourselves, remembering these truths, remembering kind of what we're choosing to be real, that we are the conscious creators of our lives. And that's what happens. That's what has happened to me in my journeys, is I have this awakening and this realization of why I have certain experiences, or why I have certain sufferings and how to kind of maneuver through them. And then what follows is then the integration, which for me is kind of like what do I do next? It's almost like strategy for me. It's for me, at least the way I perceive it, integration can still seem more of like a mental space of like understanding, conceptualizing the experience, which has led me to like this aspect of Zen, of just kind of calming the mind, coming into
Mhm.
presence, which naturally leads to embodiment, which embodiment to me is embody, which is kind of action driven. It's taking the actions, the micro habits, the actual change, the consistency, the momentum, and then that ultimately leads to the normalization of creating your new baselines, your new reality, which for me is what I see as what I give in myself as the 5 steps to transformation and to sustainability, and being in the cycle, which is what has supported me in quote unquote staying risen and the integration journey afterwards.
Yeah, that's really, I love that you take it full circle, because I feel like a lot of times integration can mean a lot of different things to different people.
Right.
And sometimes people are like, oh, I'm just going to feel a little bit off for a little while as my like energy is settling, or, oh, I'm just going to like sit and meditate on these things that come through. But then what do you do with it after that?
Mm,
And so
right.
I think it's really amazing that you put this whole program together, and that, and not only that, that you use this process for yourself, and that you know that it works, and you help guide people through it.
Hmm. Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm. I love the end in StayRizen because I first of all, I didn't know it was an acronym, and thank you
Of
so much for
course.
breaking it down for us because now it's like a bazillion more times more powerful than, I thought it was a cool name to begin with, but it just sounded cool. I had no idea that there was a deeper meaning there, and so, oh my god, that's super rad. But when you're talking about normalizing, I think that's really where, there's a lot of disconnect with people who are purely just exploring,
Mm,
and I find myself, especially in the beginning phases, very much in this
mm,
category of just, I'm a psychonaut. I just want to explore these like vast regions within myself, within my consciousness, and, just see what happens,
mm.
right? Just, no expectations, just what, like, blow my socks off, basically, like I want to see what happens. And I think I completely missed the point in the beginning that these journeys aren't just for, I mean, yes, there's an element of fun and there's curiosity and discovery. And I think that that is a really important facet to psychedelic journeying.
Mm,
But the bringing back of knowledge and wisdom and integrating that into your being and normalizing, like coming to a new
right,
normal, whatever that, however you define that for
right.
yourself, that is what the medicine is truly about, really, and if you completely miss the end part, like the zen part, the embodiment part, and the normalizing part, you're kind of there's like there's no how do I say it, there's no growth
Right.
really, right?
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. That definitely reminds me actually of this video I was watching from Martin Ball, who is a huge kind of like writer in the 5-MeO space, and he's probably written several books on 5-MeO DMT, and is a great kind of inspiration and mentor in that space specifically. And I remember him saying like there's like 5 common approaches to psychedelics, and I really resonated with these kind of 5 spaces. Not that either one is right or wrong. They're just spaces of different intentions people have for the medicines. And the first one is like exploration of inner space. Individuals who are just wanting to explore, like the
Mhm.
psychonauts, just want to kind of explore the inner workings of the mind and the psyche. And so that's a big motivation at times to work with these medicines. The second one is like enhancement of sensory experiences, like enhancing our sensory awareness, right? Which is why it's at times common to take medicines at raves because music sounds different. Our senses are
Mhm.
shifting, more sensitive, touch, taste, smell, and so at times that could be a motivation for some people to work with this medicine. The third one is healing through psychotherapy, in moving with the medicine through kind of working through using it as therapy, especially now with more research coming out. the benefits of using psychedelics for therapy. And so the fourth one is like traditional shamanic healing, right? And where we kind of work with spirits. We work kind of like looking into our own lineage and working with shamans and working in that space. That could be a huge intention and way of working with this medicine. And the fifth one, which I find to be interesting, and what he shares, which is very uncommon and what most people don't do, but is, in his perspective, one of the most valuable ones. And the fifth one is non-duality, is beginning to acknowledge and to experience non-dual states of reality and awareness, which is beginning to acknowledge the oneness and the awe, letting go of the self, the idea of self. That's where the ego dissolution, the ego death kind of occurs, and being really one with that and learning to come from non-duality back to duality, which is where the embodiment and the normalization is coming back to body, coming back to the dual nature of reality, while taking the insights and the realization of the non-dual nature of reality. And so that's kind of, I wanted to share that because I felt like that was also really supportive, in kind of different approaches to
Yeah.
psychedelics and medicines, and different intentions we could have, and ways we could work with the medicine and the benefits of each.
When I was going through the medicinal mindfulness,
Mm.
psychedelic trainers or sitters, that first
Yeah,
level
yeah.
1 course, what you were speaking about reminded me of what, Daniel McQueen was talking about. The way he sets it up is, almost as
Uh,
directions. So he has, like, north, east,
yeah, yeah.
southwest, and each of the directions, like, east is really about, the spiritual or the religious,
Mm,
communion that comes through with the plant medicine, and directly opposite of that, west, is the psychological
mm,
exploration and the
wow.
healing. So the more, so these two things are kind of in equal
Mm,
balance, right? Like you have the spiritual with the psychological sort of in equal balance. And then south is really the creativity, the play, the exploration, the
mm,
celebration, the true exploration, the psychonautical kind of, like fun. And then directly opposite of that is
wow.
north, which is like all about the scientific problem
Mhm,
solving, all those benefits like that you get when you can solve deep and very complex problems while on these
mm,
journeys as well. And
Wow.
so it really enhances
yeah.
technology, and and so you have the fun on one end, counterbalancing out the scientific technology and exploration side of it, which I found it's like very like in line with what
Mm,
you just
definitely.
expressed or
Mm,
shared with us.
Mhm.
I love how, all of these
mm,
things is what, psychedelic therapy, psychedelic journeying
most
can
definitely.
offer. And it's almost the balance of the full spectrum of its
Yeah.
benefits that I think you get a really like beautiful experience, not just experience, but this is really where consciousness starts to really come through.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And I guess so going into these journeys, it sounds like you had a really good idea of like what direction you wanted to take your experience and your intention.
Mm.
Like how did you find sitters that aligned with that and what do you look for?
Yeah, great question. I definitely would acknowledge that a lot of my intention came from what I was embarking on already, which is a self help. That's kind of what sparked a lot of my intentionality of using these medicines for personal growth, which was really the beginning of my journey of things like meditation and mindfulness and yoga. And then, so in working with these medicines, finding sitters that would support the transformational process is always a quest because part of even like receiving the medicine and working with it, a lot of this is underground, and so it's things to maneuver, just given the state of our own society and whatnot. But personally, and people that I've sat with on my own, my personal journeys to kind of choosing a sitter, it's been in a space of kind of acknowledging what the most important aspect for me is, which is safety, and creating a calm nervous system for myself. And so, in my discernment of who I choose to be a trip sitter for me, it's kind of acknowledging how comfortable I feel with the individual, and how my nervous system feels, and also an acknowledgement to the intentionality of the experience of my dosage and like what I'm choosing to sit with. as far as like sitting with shamans, that's a different type of experience. Usually with trip sitters, it's kind of something where I feel like I could manage on my own, just kind of having them as a support system. But working with like stronger medicines and bigger dosages, that's kind of where I really start to discern of who I'm choosing to sit with, as far as their experience with the medicine and their experience with handling trauma, and their background, their intention. Also, just really tuning in to what feels right in my nervous system and my intuition, and kind of who I'm choosing to allow to share that space, because it's a very intimate space. And there's many stories that I've heard of traumatic experiences of individuals being in or being with others, facilitators and or trip sitters, that just didn't really honor the boundaries and honor the energetic space. And so I discern a lot, in moving forward with who to share that space with, and what their story, intention, and experience is.
Mm, it's so important. And, we literally just had a conversation with a woman who created Black People
Mm,
Trip. And one of the things that she was talking about was also from ethnic and cultural
mm,
standpoint,
Mhm.
having sitters and guides that look like you and
mm,
reflect your human experience as well.
most definitely. Yeah, I see a lot of value in that. It reminds me of James Fadiman's book, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, of kind of also, yeah, acknowledges sitting with a man and a woman, having both energies present can be very supportive as well.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
Mhm.
I was talking to, I think this actually came through, Brooke. We interviewed her as well. She's a
Oh,
cousin-in-law
nice.
of mine, but she runs the California, psychedelic, clinic of California Psychedelic. I think that's what it's called. But basically, they work with MAPS, and they've
Oh,
been doing a
sweet.
lot of, like, the trials for,
Mm,
MDMA and stuff, and she was saying that, I think they have eliminated it now, but, in the beginning of the trials, at least, they were, dictating that for MDMA specifically, that there needed to be
mm,
2 people in the room, for these clinical trials, and it had to be a man and a
mm.
woman. So that, and I bet you it was from
Right, right,
Fadiman's,
right.
uh yeah, I think that's probably what it was informed
Most
by.
definitely.
Um, you are now holding, like, cannabis circles for the community and as well as integration circles. Tell us a little bit about these different offerings that you're
Yeah,
doing.
thank you for bringing up earlier as well. It's just Daniel McQueen, a big inspiration for continuing the work of cannabis, aside from my personal experience, has been the psychedelic cannabis book that he wrote. And so, after reading that book and working with others who host cannabis facilitation circles, it's really inspired me to kind of acknowledge the uniqueness of cannabis as a profound medicine that offers us more agency and offers us a space. It's almost like, as Daniel mentions, like it's like a training ground. We could use this medicine to kind of help train our nervous systems and go on these trips, which can be just as powerful and profound as other medicines. It's also right now the most kind of readily available kind of medicine and psychedelic that we have access to, especially if you're in a state where it's already legalized. And it's also just giving me a space to kind of work with psychedelics above ground, and offer space for us to tune into our nervous systems. And so, part of what I have been doing, my most recent quests have been offering these cannabis circles, where we offer a safe space for individuals to explore intentionally and ceremonially with the medicine of cannabis. And so we offer them kind of meditation, sound healing, and different protocols to help calm their nervous system, exploring the different strains that would be applicable for the type of intention that they have, whether it's whatever they're working with, whether it's anxiety and or just enhancing their creativity, and how to kind of have a deep and transformational experience with the medicine, and setting up a safe space for them to do so. And so that's been part of the cannabis circles, and exploring more with the medicine of cannabis, using it for personal growth and using it for self healing, as it has really supported me on my journey, using it in that way. and also providing an integration circle after part as part of the offering as well in these circles, having a space of integration and speaking about what is coming through, and kind of being able to kind of uh, see what it means and what it's calling of us, especially with cannabis, where in recent circles we've had people kind of just point out like more awareness shifts and just like aches in their body, and what that can mean as far as kind of pain in their shoulders and how that could represent just carrying a lot of weight or responsibility,
Mm,
and or having individuals kind of have these profound kind of moments of just feeling more into their feeling body and crying and then releasing, no longer holding that in within themselves, but kind of having the space to release and to share. So it's been really profound, and I'm a huge advocate for the medicine of cannabis and starting to shift the stigma of how we look at cannabis in itself, and using it intentionally can really provide such a transformational space, just like other medicines can and do.
Yeah, I really found that Ellen led my first like full cannabis journey as a psychedelic
Mm,
medicine not too long ago. And I remember at the end, I was like, wow, I cannot believe how deep I
mhm,
went.
mhm.
It was so powerful. And it was just, I mean, I'm still thinking every day I think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this came up, that came up. That it's, I mean, it's like really profound. When you do your circles, how many people do you guys usually have join? And then do you do them over Zoom or do you do them in person?
Yeah, a great question. They're usually intimate circles, so no more. We don't usually have more than like 7 people attend. So it gives us a space of intimacy and being able to acknowledge everyone's individual intention and share. It is over Zoom, which has been really great. People having the safety of their own home and being able to curate that. We do send them emails of kind of some tips to create a safe space, and creating the energetic space for them to be able to surrender, and let go. Um, and so that's been kind of like the opening of the ceremonial set and setting, and what people have been receiving in these circles.
I love that. I've been finding Zoom to be I mean, I've been doing the breathwork circles on Zoom
Uh
all
huh.
throughout the pandemic
Uh huh.
and just now stepping into, cannabis-assisted breathwork and plant
Nice.
medicine circles, and yeah, it's really amazing. It's you're like, yes, I love being in person with a group, but,
Mm-hmm.
there actually is something also to be gained, like you said, about
Mm,
people being in their own comfortable, secluded spaces and being able to just retreat afterwards, and stay within that very, very familiar and comfortable setting that you don't necessarily get when you have to travel somewhere to be in ceremony with people IRL.
most definitely.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's like when like I think unspoken sort of advantage about Zoom
Yeah.
that has been a nice byproduct of what we've had to do over the last year.
Uh huh. Exactly.
Yeah. You also I wanted to bring up 2 more things. You have the StayRizen Portalcast, which is what you call your podcast. I would love to hear about what you're doing there, and then also the men's circles that you have been guiding, just because
Mm,
I feel like that's something that's so desperately needed more of
mm.
in our world right now, and so, yeah, just tell us a little
Hmm.
bit about both of those things.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Thank you for opening up that space. With the Stay Risen Portal Cast, it's been a project that I have been slowly but surely kind of curating over the last few years, as far as creating very, um, uh, offering a very creative type of podcast, and how I could bring in my most authentic kind of self in its creation. And so the way I always like to acknowledge it is, if these are some of my favorite shows. If Rick and Morty and Midnight Gospel and Logic all came together, it would be like the Portal cast. And so
I love it.
and so an inspiration of these really creative shows that have really inspired me, and really just expanded the way of sharing myself in my most authentic truth. I've chose to kind of like bring in some of those elements into the Portal cast. And so I have a designer in Costa Rica that designs all my characters, that designs kind of the whole quote unquote realm of Risen, which is also what I'm writing as far as like a storyline. And so the storyline offers a character named Risen, who's a multidimensional time time traveler who's on a quest and on a mission to help guide the younger generations in its liberation from the dark forces during this age of Aquarius and the Kali Yuga. And so I have the kind of storyline that I'm building and the characters. I have the voice of Risen as the host, which is my voice as I'm playing Risen, and then I have Sophia, which is an AI system that helps guide the listeners on a journey, very much like how Logic's Incredible True Story has like this AI that supports it. Also, an inspiration from a tribe called Quest, and so it's like this little kind of supportive voice that helps tell the story and whatnot. Also, part of that is talking about my music. I have a soundtrack that I've been curating for the Portalcast to help kind of build the storyline and the realm. And then I bring on different guests to help kind of support the mission that Risen is on, to help support this mission of liberation, of self-realization, and of personal healing. So it's been really fun and creative. It's also what I also see myself as taking on the responsibility of being kind of a leader and a way shower. There's different kind of controversies, but in some articles that I've read, they say that Generation Z kind of ends in 1997, which is where the year I was born in. And so as I hold that as a truth for me, I see myself as one of the oldest, the eldest in Generation Z, which just offers me the opportunity and responsibility to be a leader and an advocate for the youth. I have a younger sister who's turning 20 in a couple of days, and so growing up with her and her association, her friends, really just supported me in perspective in terms of the type of content and ways that I could present information like this in a creative and fun way that can engage them while also educate them and myself as well. And so a lot of that has been the intention going into the Portalcast, and creating it in a way where it could really just resonate with my authentic truth and those who also resonate with the storyline and the creativity. So that's been kind of like the creations. It's still, I'm working on getting to the finalizations of things for its debut in the next few weeks, but it's been really fun for sure.
That's
It sounds
so
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah, I cannot wait to check it out.
I know. It's just such a nice departure from, I don't know, just like the direct way of doing a podcast these days. I feel like that it's
Yeah.
gonna completely resonate with your audience, and I love that you have this drive and this calling that you've identified within yourself to be a leader for Gen Z,
Mm,
which, needs I find Gen Z so inspiring as a
Mhm.
generation,
mm,
just like so much entrepreneurial spirit. But I also know that with that comes a lot of you know, potential like just trauma also, things that are I think the world that this generation, your generation is inheriting is one of the most difficult to live in right now and thrive in. And so
mhm.
yeah, it's really beautiful that you are taking up the charge to be a
Yeah.
leader in space and doing it so creatively. Like
I
that's super.
know, it's, like, so fun because this work can be so serious and people get
Yeah.
lost in that, and it's like we
Mhm.
forget to, take a step back and enjoy ourselves. That's, the whole point of being present, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now tell us about your men's circles, because I'm serious. Like I only know of maybe one. I want to say one other leader, and I can't recall his name right now, but um, he's attached to the woman who runs Rising Woman. But yeah, I feel like this is such a needed and just important like category or space to be, kind of guiding and leading and offering
Mm.
help and
Yeah.
assistance. So yeah, tell us like what inspired this and how that's been
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, what a great question. And we just had a circle last night, which was really beautiful. And I shared this with the brothers last night as far as just a point of reference. But I was recently watching season 2 of Psychedelica, which is really amazing. I definitely encourage to tap into it. But they mentioned something in episode 2, I believe, that talked about like this experiment that they did on mice, where they would play a sound and then shock the mice to the point where when they would just hear the sound, they would have like a PTSD experience where it was traumatic, and they would respond to just the sound without even getting shocked because they were so used to the
Mm.
pain. And so what they found is that when those mice had babies, baby mice, that just playing the sound would also create a certain reaction for them. And so it was very curious because the baby mice never had the shock followed of the sound followed with the shock. Just the sound in itself would create some type of reaction for them. And so what they were acknowledging is that trauma is stored in our body and is stored in our DNA, and can and is passed down through generations when it isn't cleared and when it isn't healed. And so this can occur in our own lives with trauma, and trauma that hasn't been healed and or moved with and has been passed down to us by our generation, from our parents, grandparents, even our lineage, and even our culture. And so this is kind of like the idea of karmic cycles that are passed down, that are needing for us to rise up and break them. And so I shared that in a space of, this is kind of where the responsibility of the divine masculine rising comes in, is kind of acknowledging that there is and there can be trauma that has been passed down to us. And so part of this exploration of this kind of embodiment of finding balance and healing is acknowledging kind of like where we can notice in our own selves where there's aggression and there's abandonment, loneliness, or there's stories in our lineage of passive aggressiveness or infidelity or abuse in all of its forms, and starting to kind of become curious about what we're dealing with in our lifetime and what can and could have been passed down and what we're experiencing in our relationships. And so part of my journey with all this is I believe that, you know, divine partnerships, when we're in a divine partnership and we have a reflection of intimate space that we share with someone else, that's where we kind of get to really explore what comes up. And since they're reflections, we get to see ourselves in many different ways and shapes and forms. And it isn't always so pretty or it feels so good.
Right, right.
And so personally, I've grown the most in relation to others. I've grown the most in relationships, and I'm currently in a really beautiful and profound divine partnership with a goddess. And so I have been learning and growing and deepening that process for myself in the last few months. And speaking from my direct experience, it's a lot of this has been a reassurance of mine of things that come up that kind of I get to revisit as if this is still my truth, or is this something that's coming up from a past traumatic experience that I can let go of. And so part of the divine masculine kind of circles is kind of offering a space for us to speak about kind of these experiences where we do feel kind of the aggression come out in certain conversations, or we do feel where we aren't fully allowing ourselves to be open. And especially within just where we are as far as a masculine in our society, there's a lot of kind of limiting beliefs that, you know, have been told and have been passed down to us as far as how we allow our emotions to be felt. I remember you know, my own father in itself, you know, he didn't have a father that supported him. His father abandoned him when he was very young, and so he had to kind of raise himself. And so his own kind of challenges have accrued difficulty in his emotions and being able to express, which has offered me kind of growing up, noticing what my relationship was to my father and what my relationship was to the masculine. And most definitely in my earlier journey, it was in a more what I would consider unbalanced and toxic place where I was viewing women as a space of just using them, and my relationship with my father wasn't really there. I would just barely see him since he worked two jobs. And so part of my healing and my work over the years to get to where I am today in a divine partnership has been looking at that and looking at moments where I can deepen the intimacy of my own father and embrace emotions and embrace the relationship I want to choose with him, while also acknowledging the healing work of forgiveness that I was holding on I was noticing I was holding on to anger and stories of him not being there, and him not kind of like supporting me when I needed him the most, and being able to kind of forgive that and lean into that and understand his story and understand what he had to work with and the pain that he accrued, and then me being able to break that cycle. And same thing with my mother. And so seeing my parents, being able to kind of see what was then passed down to me as far as the gifts, and what was passed down for me to me as far as things that I could break through, and especially healing my own masculine, of overcoming the limiting beliefs I had growing up, which was being too sensitive, because my Cancer and my Moon, would get me in my feelings a lot. And so kind of overcoming those, even that spectrum of being in my too much in my feminine, or too sensitive, or too emotional, and like being okay and revisiting and reframing that as seeing vulnerability as one of my greatest strengths, and using my emotions as an opportunity to express my truth with others, and deepening kind of my masculine structure, and then balancing both. And so this is kind of like the intention and purpose of these circles, is to provide a safe space for the brothers to come together and feel supported, have brotherhood and community, and for me to also offer my own direct experience of what I've been learning in my partnership, and the growth along the way, to have a community where we can all rise together and support the new era rising of balance and harmony.
Wow, that's really incredible.
I know. I want to send my partner to your circles.
Please do.
I
We
mean,
love
seriously, like, thank you. I just have to say thank you so much for just doing this work for yourself, your own healing, and
Mhm.
being such an incredible example of um, what that divine masculine can look like right now in
Yeah.
this world that we live in right now, you know? I think so much has shifted in such a short amount of time, and that many men are feeling a bit lost in the shuffle
Mm,
because it's like the definition of what it means to be a man has sort of changed or opened up, or been sort of shattered, or demolished in some senses.
mm,
And I think these types of circles, and just the way in which you're holding the space and asking the hard questions, but in such a compassionate way.
mm,
I mean, that's really how we heal, right? And that's really
mm,
how we can actually raise a whole new generation of men, and also help to heal a whole older generation of people who identify as male and men.
most definitely.
Um,
Mhm,
yeah, it's so powerful, the work that you're doing. So
mm,
just
mhm.
thank you.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. That's much appreciated, and it's my honor and privilege just to share what's in my heart and my experience for others to step into their most authentic expression and truth.
So you've been on this pretty, it seems short, but a quite deep personal journey of healing. What would you say is that one shining piece of wisdom that you now carry and live by?
Mm.
Presence, presence in the moment. I have found that the greatest remembrance in my experience thus far has been to fully embrace what is here now, and to speak what's most authentic in our hearts, speak our truest emotions and feelings, even if it's difficult, even if it might hurt others, even if it might trigger others, but living in your most authentic expression, living loudly and expressing yourself through being really present with what's here and what's in front of you, and embracing every moment with that level of intimacy, and that level of love and joy, um, acknowledging, and last thing I'll share here, which I've learned, is really appreciating the divine intimacy and dance that we have with each and every moment. And if all is divine, if we are divine, then it's always a dance with the divine. And whether we're washing dishes and or watching a movie and or writing taking notes on YouTube or on a podcast. Each moment has the same level of opportunity of how intimate we could be with that moment, how present we can be with that moment. And so, what I've taken away from that has been to really surrender more into the now, deepen the awareness I have with each moment, knowing that once a moment passes, it's gone. and we can't take those moments back. So to really appreciate those we have around us that are still walking earth, and to appreciate what's here in the now, while it's still here, while we are still here, and to really embrace that divinity and love.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
I feel like I want to sit with that for a while. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, thank you. I just want to keep on saying thank you. Thank you for this hour, thank you for this conversation and being so open and willing to share your life in this way. And I feel like, I've taken so much from just this time that we've spent together. You've given me a lot to think about in my own growth and journey. And so, yeah, just thank you for how you're showing up in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so honored to speak with you. So we appreciate your time. And this is something that I'm so excited to follow you and to see all the incredible things that are coming your way. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you to the both of you. Thank you, Ellen and Sam, for this space and for sharing conversation and offering a space for us to curate such a magical portal for others to tune in. And thank you for listening and gifting me this opportunity to share my voice and my heart. And I trust for everyone listening that you receive what it is that you need and the medicine that you need through our voices and to the song of our voices. And so thank you so much. It's such an honor. I'm looking forward to continuing to rise with all of you and stay risen.
Yay! Music for Wu Nu is composed by Adam Miller.